My name's Rachel, and today I will be reviewing the young adult novel Divergent by Veronica Roth. Also, its movie. They're both very similar, minus a few minor plot details, but they're basically the same, so I'm going to be deeming if both of them are developmentally appropriate for adolescents. So I'm going to start with a quick summary of the book and movie. Our setting is post-apocalyptic Chicago. It's the only city left on Earth, and society is divided into 5 different factions or groups. Each faction values a certain characteristic. So for example, Erudite is a faction, and they value intelligence. So everyone in Erudite is either a teacher, a scientist, or a researcher. Your job is depending on what faction you're in. At the age of 16, everyone in society takes a test that shows them which faction their personality would most fit in. That leads us to our main protagonist, Tris Pryor. She's in the faction Abnegation, which is they value selflessness, so they're the volunteers of society. She takes the test and she gets 3 different positive results, which is unheard of. It's called Divergent, hence the name of the book. So everyone, after they take the test, has the night to ponder on their results, and then the next day they go to the choosing ceremony, where they have to choose their faction, basically pledge allegiance to that faction, and if it's not the one they were born in, then they kind of cut ties with their family a little bit. So at the choosing ceremony, Tris is confused on what to do because she got 3 results, but she chooses Dauntless, which values bravery, and they're the police force of the society. So the book's basically about Tris going through initiation and trying to keep her divergence, her getting 3 results, a secret because it's not really welcome in the society. It's unheard of. It's weird. It's not supposed to be there. So she's keeping that a secret, going through initiation, because if you fail out of initiation, which is basically a bunch of tests over the months after you choose your faction, you become factionless, which is basically the homeless of the society. So the novel and book is about her trying to make it through initiation and become dauntless. So the first aspect of the story that's going to help me determine if this is adolescent appropriate are the factions paired with Tris's divergence. So choosing a faction is basically doing identity foreclosure. Very high commitment, very low exploration, like you're committing to this, and if you don't, you're going to be homeless. Paired with Tris's divergence, so she has many characteristic traits and she doesn't know where she belongs. This paired with the adolescent quality of having to choose a life cycle service. During your time, you're trying to find your role identity, what you're going to add to society, gives a good outcome, because the book basically says that this main protagonist, the hero, is trying to figure all this out, and it's okay not to fit in to one thing or to choose something and it not be correct for you, because in the end, Tris basically finds out that Dauntless isn't what she expected it to be, and she changes her mind. She basically rejects Dauntless and accepts all of her personality traits. So it's a good example to adolescents that yes, you need to find your role in society, but your first choice may not be totally correct. For example, college kids declare a major and then change it a lot. So I think this makes it a very developmentally appropriate for adolescents, and helping them realize that, yes, you need to find your life cycle service, but you don't have to immediately find it, and it's okay to search for it along the way. The second aspect of the novel and movie that will help me determine if it's appropriate is Tris not fully revealing herself to her friends during the initiation process for Dauntless. Especially in the novel, you can tell that she is second-guessing everything she's about to say, choosing her words carefully so that she'll fit in and she won't get kicked out, and she'll be socially accepted. For example, she hides her divergence throughout all of it. She doesn't talk about abnegation at all. People just find out. She doesn't really bring it up that often. Yes, she's kind of herself, but she holds a lot of it back to fit in. This paired with the adolescent quality of recursive thinking gives a kind of negative result. It shows a message that you have to hide parts of yourself to fit in, to make it through a process, or to fit into a group, which I think makes this book socially not acceptable for adolescents. It gives them a wrong message about having to hide certain aspects about yourself to find friends, which I think is a negative and a small tick in a good novel, I believe. The third aspect I'm going to talk about are the tests to get into Dauntless. So these included jumping over roof buildings, fighting each other, physical tests like running, punching bags, and then a mental part where they went through hallucinations to fight their worst fears. Now this, paired with the adolescent quality of heightened risk-taking, gives them heightened stimulus. May sound like an awful idea, like why maybe reading this book isn't the best idea because it's going to make kids want to go fight each other and jump off roofs, but all of the tests are controlled risks, if you really think about it, because all the tests are put on by the leaders, the adults of Dauntless. Only about maybe 10% of the things Triss does in the book are her own choices to take those risks, kind of excluding the end because that's just more of a plot twist, war type thing breaks out. But I'd say the only example of her taking her own risk is maybe going to see her brother at Erudite, and that is a very low risk compared to all the controlled risks she went through. So I think this pairs well with adolescents going through this, like they get heightened stimulus because it's showing that controlled risks are good to take with your peers. So like risks where you're supervised, like sports or like wrestling, football, even like theater, like getting out of your comfort zone to fit into a controlled, maybe like school type setting risk. So overall, the third factor really, I think, makes this very adolescently appropriate. So overall, I'd give Divergent 2 big thumbs up. It helps adolescents realize that there's many different paths to find your life cycle service, and it's okay to be confused about different aspects of your personality and finding out your identity in society. I also believe it influences adolescents to take controlled risks in school and sports, and risks that will help them become better in society. So risks that help them fit into that role. So possibly that could relate to certain American adolescents as risks in school, like trying out for that musical or joining the wrestling team, finding your faction. Now, there's a few small problems with the book. Like I said, Triss not fully revealing herself to her friends to try and fit into this faction, and only revealing herself to this one individual, like a romantic lead. But overall, I think Divergent is a great book, great novel, has a great female protagonist, and I would recommend it to any adolescent out there. Thanks.